Hey everyone, we're going to take a quick walkthrough here of one of the newest designs up here called Planked, which just released last night. But there's mostly straightforward elements in this. There are a couple potential gotchas based on your familiarity with Photoshop, so I thought we would just take a quick look at this, walk through some of the options just so you have a better understanding and a good idea of how to put this thing together quickly. So you're going to notice a few elements in this. Let's just take a look at the layers as we go through here. So as per usual with a lot of my designs, there's some color grading layers at the top, which is going to influence some color and some contrast. Again, that can be adjusted to taste. It's all layered in here. You can move opacities. You can turn things on and off as you would like. If we drop down again here, you're going to see this design in the horizontal format actually has a customizable game day schedule on here. So this schedule, if we drop it down, there's 31 days, I should say, pre-built into this. Of course, those could be removed or duplicated, to add as many as you would like. Now, to change this thing, we want to make this process efficient here. So let's say we wanted to change some colors and dates and things like that. What I would recommend doing, let's start with colors, for instance, say of the boxes. Let's say we wanted to make the home game boxes a different color so they stand out from opponent games. What I would recommend is grabbing the Move tool and then making sure the Auto Select checkbox is turned on. And what the Auto Select will allow you to do is that whatever object you click on that Photoshop sees under your cursor, it will jump to that layer. So you can see as I'm clicking around here, it's jumping to some different layers and things. So we're going to use this to actually jump to our box layer. So I'm just going to click on, let's say, the first home box right here. We're going to click on that one, and you can see jumps over to day 3 right to that rectangle that we have set up there. Now, the cool thing is if I hold the Shift key and click the next one, I can multiple select each of these days. So we'll just go through, we'll grab each one, make sure that one's selected. Now that they're all selected, in our properties window, I can just go up and I can change the fill colors on all these at one time. So let's say I wanted to bring up the color picker and I wanted to make this red. I could set the red that we want, click OK, and boom, it updates all those at once. I didn't have my first one picked, so we'll just pick that one again. Same red, there we go. But you can see how you can select multiple days at once. Then, for instance, you could come and grab the rest, so we could pick that one, hold Shift, and start through and clicking all these. So let's just grab them all at once, and we'll show how we can update these all at the same time. This is much faster than going through and opening each of those folders one by one. So let's say we wanted to make those white. Well, we can just turn that white just like that. And that's also a great way if you wanted to come through and change any of these labels. You're wanting to put team names or town names in for your opponents and things like that. Just click on the specific one you want to change, type in the new one, click on the next one, type in the new one. Same with the dates and everything. So whatever you click on, as long as you have auto select turned on, it's going to jump right to that layer. Okay, so there's your schedule. There's an easy way to modify that. So let's collapse that. Of course, there's your years up there. Those are normal text fields. And then, let's before we get into some middle stuff, let's jump down to the bottom. You're going to see there's some background smoke in here. And so we can change the color of that. That's just a hue saturation slider. So let's say we wanted to make that red to match our new schedule. Well, we would just drag that over and make it red. So again, very easy to use. There's some background shapes in here which just give a little bit of extra texture in the background. And you can play with the opacity of those to make those as visible or non-visible as you want to see. And there's different rows. You can turn those on and off. Again, just some customization options in there. If we expand our fields folder, you're going to see there's some different ground types in here. So right now there's kind of like a court one activated. We have some asphalt here. Makes it really cool for like an outdoor basketball look. Some concrete just for some different variety there. We have some dirt. There's ice. There's like this gymnastics mat type material here. With the matte, we can actually turn on the color option here, and we can make that color, anything that we'd want that to be as well. And there's a grass option here. And now you'll take notice the lines still show up here, because if you go to the group above this, we have some field line options. And so you can mix and match these based on what you would like. Again, with the court one turned on, and again, that can be turned off as well. And there's a color change for that. So if you wanted to change the color of that line for any reason, you could. So for instance, if we have, let's turn the grass off, turn the court on. So that'd be somewhere you would see those lines. And you could make those black lines, or you could come in and play with the sliders, turn the lightness down, push colors around, things like that. So you can play with all of that to get the look that you want. But for instance, if we wanted to turn on the grass, you can see there's some football lines here. So if you wanted that field look, you could turn those on and off. There's also some soccer lines that could be turned on and off. It works well for the grass. On the mat, there's some wrestling lines. Again, just to give that extra look to the graphic for the sport that you're going for. On the ice, we have some hockey stuff built in here. And then on the dirt, there's some baseball, softball stuff. There's an additional home plate if you want to turn that off and on. And then for the asphalt, we actually have a color change set up here. It's automatically set to like this tennis green. And of course, you could turn tennis lines on. There's a lot of tennis courts out there that are blue, so you could always move this slider over to a blue to match that look. So again, completely customizable here. Alright, so let's just reset this a little bit. So let's turn our court lines back on. Let's reset these to white. I'm just going to move the lightness all the way up. And let's go back to our fields, and we're just going to turn our court back on for now. Alright, just to reset here. And so now let's talk about one of the potential gotchas here for changing the text in the middle. So this center text here has some effects to it. And you'll see right off the bat, there's some shadow being cast here. There's also some reflection down underneath there. So this is all controlled via smart objects. So you're going to see for each text here, the main and the secondary. So this would be the main text, the large text in the middle. The secondary is just below it here. There's several layers for each. And again, this is all labeled, so you can kind of see what's happening here. But let's start with our main text. So if we look here, we got a main text, edit this smart object. Okay, then you're going to see some main text. So this is just a shadow that drops under that. And then there's a couple of layers here too. So this is the main text shadow. That's that shadow that's being cast forward. And this is that reflection underneath there. So these are separate layers, again, because some of these ground materials, for instance, if we didn't have the court on, so we had the asphalt on, well, you really wouldn't want a reflection for that, because that's not typically a reflective material, but you'd want your shadow on for that. So, again, you can pick and choose based on the ground material what layers that you have on, but let's talk about changing these. You're going to notice here it says, do not edit this layer. Because we can make all this changes within the one main text, edit this smart object layer. And what we're going to do is we're going to double click on this little icon here on the thumbnail in the corner, which tells us this is a smart object. If we double click on it, it's going to open up a new document window. You're going to see it's called Razorbacks because that's the initial team name I had in there building this. Again, you can ignore that. We're just worried about the text. Now this is just an updatable text field. So if you wanted to change the text, it'd be like normal text, double click on the text layer here. And you could just put in a team name or a school name or anything that you want here. Click the check mark to apply it. You could change the color from here. So instead of green, if we wanted to go with more of a red, you just set the red that we want, click OK. Now once we have this where we want it, all we need to do is close this window, ask if we want to save the changes. We're going to say yes. And you're going to notice as soon as it pops back into our main window, it's updated this text, but it's also updated the reflection and the shadow to match. Okay, so that's the beauty of smart objects there. Now, one side note of this, of course, I do want to point out this base shadow. Again, if it's too long based on or too short, just Command or Control T, and then just grab a side handle here. I like to hold Shift and Alt, and then you can drag this in proportionately, you know, to make that shadow work for whatever size you would like. And just click apply. Now, one side note here, if we go into our main text, and let's show this on the secondary text, because this is the same way. Secondary text also has that reflection built in, and there's also some shadowing built in, again, based on whichever you would like to turn on. But secondary text, edit this smart object, so this is the one that we want to edit here. So let's just double click to go into this layer. Opens the new document. Again, just a normal text layer from here. So one thing to point out, this is going to be for either of these smart objects layer. Let's say that you want to put something in here that's longer than the canvas. Okay, so let's update this text to say something like Nitro High School. So you can see it runs, we'll click apply, it runs off the canvas. So if you were to close this, you're going to see all of your text does not show up here, right? It gets cut off because it only shows what's on the canvas. So let's go back in here. All you need to do, I'm just going to preemptively zoom out a little bit, grab the crop tool, make sure to clear your ratio up here if it's preset, and then I like to just click the move tool, go back to the crop tool. So now it's cropped to the outer bounds of the canvas. And so what I'm going to do is grab a side handle here. I'm going to hold Control and Alt or Command and Option. And I'm just going to drag out from the side until this just gets barely past all of our text. And then I'm going to click Apply. So now our canvas extends for all of the text. When we close this window and save it, we're going to see that now we get all of our text, and of course the reflection updates and all of that good stuff automatically as well. So that would go for the main text as well. If you're typing something in that extends past the canvas, just extend that canvas with the crop tool and save, and that will fix all of that. Now, if you want to resize this main text or the secondary text, what I would suggest doing is setting the text to read whatever you would like it to read, getting all that worked out, and then grabbing all of these layers at once. So let's say we wanted to just resize the main text. I would grab the shadowing, which is a little bottom edge shadowing here, the main text, the base shadow, the main text shadow, the main text reflection. So I'm going to make sure my top layer here is selected, which is going to start with text shadowing. I'm going to hold Shift. I'm going to click this bottom one. So I'm going to make sure all these are selected at once, and then Command or Control T to transform this. And I'm going to point out one side note here as we do that. You'll notice that as I do this, see how the shadow and the reflection is wrapping the front part of the planks here. We don't want that, okay? And there's an easy fix for that. What we're going to do is just cancel this. Before you start your resize, just unlink these two masks right here on the shadow and the reflection. Just turn those links off. Now, if we Command or Control T to resize, you're going to take notice as this goes up and down. See how it's keeping that mask intact on the front side of this, and we don't have to worry about that masking kind of getting wonky there and pouring over the front of that edge, because it looks better if that mask is intact. So we're going to select that, we're going to unlink these, we're going to resize, and then apply, and then you can relink your mask layers if you need to right here. Okay, so if you wanted to resize, that's how I'd recommend doing that without pulling your hair out. So I wanted to be sure that we covered that. So another thing to point out is in this one, you're going to notice this group called the rear wall panels. So if we extend this group, what I've done is I've actually masked off all of these back panels in case you wanted to drop a secondary image in here. So you're going to see a panel for each one of these, starting, you know, panel 18's at the end. There's 18 different ones, all the way to panel 1, so you're going to know, you can just count to know each one that you have here. You could also hold Control or Command and click on a mask, and it'll give you an outline of whatever panel you're at. So if I wanted to know what panel is this one, well, I could hold Command or Control, click the mask, and oh, okay, it's that one. And then just hit Command or Control D to deselect that. So that's a quick little way to figure out which one you're at. But let's say we wanted to drop an image here. I would just expand this folder. It's going to tell you put the subject here. So let's just jump over here and grab a subject temporarily. So let's turn him on. We're going to pull him over, drop him in here. you're going to notice right off the bat, you're seeing him within this panel in the back here. And there's also a desaturation attached to this panel here. So you could control how desaturated or saturated that is. Or if you wanted to colorize it, you could turn on colorize. You know, and you could set that to just like a blanket color or something like that. Play with the saturation. So again, all of that's controllable there. There is opacity on this, so you could pick the group. You could bring the opacity up. Again, just depending on how light or how strong you wanted the effect to be in the background there. Okay, so that's all of your back panels and how those work. And then, again, other than that, everything else should be pretty straightforward. That should be a good overview of everything in this horizontal layout. Now I'm just going to pop over to our vertical layout just to point out a couple things. Now this one's pretty straightforward. You're not going to see anything too crazy in this one. All of our background options are down here. Same ones. We have the court, we have the asphalt. Again, the color can be turned on and off here. We've got the concrete, the dirt, the ice, the matte texture, again with the color, and the grass. So all of that is there. So we'll just turn the court on. I did want to point out that in this one there are a couple of options to drop the subject in. One is for a full length. So you could definitely go full length and use this glow down here as a floor. Or you could pull this from full length down into the 3/4 if you didn't want to use feet, and it's going to just apply a natural fade here. So then you could resize and make your subject as big or small as you want and just do a natural fade here, which also looks good with that one. So one other thing to point out, I do like to point this out in a lot of templates. You may have seen this in another design. But if you're working with any template that has like some background lighting effects, I always think it looks good to amp up the rim lighting on your subject a little bit. So if you photographed your subject with some rim lighting like we have here, what I like to do is just double click on the subject layer. That's going to bring up our layer style box here, and I'm going to turn on some inner glow. So we're going to click here to turn this on. I'm going to change the blend mode to color dodge with my color as white. And then you can play with the size, which was how much this glow kind of comes from the outside into the subject. You can play with the range, which is where your transition points are at. I like my range typically to be all the way to 100. And once you get something that you like, I kind of like that, I'm going to click OK. And then I don't want the effect everywhere, so right now it is. So I'm going to make sure that I right-click over our effect and say create a layer out of this. So now that's going to give us our glow layer on its own layer, the glow effect on its own layer, I should say. I'm going to hold Alt or Option, click the mask to hide this, and then what that'll allow me to do is just come in with a white brush, and you could even turn the flow down if you wanted a little bit, and then just choose where I paint this additional rim lighting in. So if I just want a little bit on the arm here, maybe a little bit on this side. You could hit the hair. You got to be careful. Sometimes the hair looks a little bit wonky as you add more. But you can just kind of amp that glow up just a little bit, just so that you get that cool blending into that lighter background. So that's just one little trick that I like to do for mine. Outside of that, I think you're going to find everything again. It's pretty straightforward. Should be fairly easy to use. And I hope that you get a ton of use out of this. Hope that it makes you some money. And look forward to the next one.